Okay, so...
Knock, knock.
Say?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Markus.
Markus who?
Markus is gonna do the intro for this one.
Yay! You should keep that in.
I'm keeping that. Just because how bad it was.
Hello and welcome to another sultry episode of the CineBeards. I am your host, Markus. With me are my beloved co-hosts.
I thought you were gonna say parasites.
Yeah.
What a miss.
My beloved co-hosts, Thomas the Marshall Sharp.
That's not how my name is said, but I appreciate the introduction. Thank you.
Also, Dion the Van Heerden.
What's better?
And Jason the Music Ant.
This is just taking a bad turn.
It took a really... I should have stopped while I was ahead.
Yeah, no, you weren't. Like,
You should have been more like, yeah, say, welcome to another episode of
CineBeards.
CineBeards.
We got three losers
I'm
here.
your host, Jason Jew. With me, as always, One Take Dion,
Yeah, see?
Tommy Two Legs,
Yeah. And Mark's the squealer.
Actually, I prefer to go by Mac the Knife. It actually makes sense thematically.
Markus, the bad at nicknames.
We got a job, a real big job.
So, if these racist caricatures haven't made it clear enough, we're talking about...
racist?
how's this racist?
That's like if somebody does a pirate voice and you're like, oh, these racist caricatures.
These are racist pirates. Right, anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're talking about gangster movies this week.
Are we?
Yes, we are, Dion.
Markus, what am an gangster movie?
I'm glad you asked that question, Dion. A gangster movie...
It's a great question, Dion, but you asked it in an incredibly stupid manner, so you will not get an answer to your question.
A gangster film in our context is a film that centers around illegal activities, usually of the organized crime fashion. Basically, every movie Martin Scorsese has ever made.
On!
Your intestines.
My intestines!
This is going super well.
Going well.
Okay, cool. So the
Sorry,
movie's about
we're being
Martin
dicks here.
Scorsese.
Yeah, Martin Scorsese's filmography and other movies that feature gangsters and gangsterism.
Nice. Okay. So sort of some of the Star Wars prequels and some of the original trilogy as well. We've got Jabba the Hutt there.
Yep, he's a crime lord.
So
Yep.
that's a gangster film?
Those few scenes in Jabba's palace absolutely are.
Nice. All right. Cool.
Star Wars gangster movie confirmed. You heard it here
Nice.
first.
Yeah.
Anyway, gangster movies don't actually often feature rappers in acting roles. It's a common misconception.
All right.
I mean, I did some research and they were actually very few and far between. I mean, they sometimes have like bit parts in bigger ensemble cast movies, but I couldn't really find, like, except for Straight Outta Compton, which is more a music
not a gangster movie,
biopic.
though,
Yeah.
When
I
I
mean,
think gangster movies, I think like
DJ
Little Caesar.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah, it's-
DJ Marlon Brando? Yeah.
He was the
That's
freshest
really how
MC.
how you suck all the gravitas out of somebody's name is by putting DJ in front of it.
DJ Marlon Brando. Wow, he's less threatening now.
I agree, DJ Thomas.
Thanks, DJ Dion.
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah,
That's
that's
kind of
actually-
slick.
Fuck.
Alliteration helps with everything.
So, to try and get us back on track, Jason mentioned earlier that he had
You
something...
contracted cool cats.
Oh boy.
How do I work with these people? Jason was trying to tell me something interesting about gangster movies from the 30s and 40s.
Yeah, that little, interestingly, that little voice we all did earlier, that yeah, say,
Nah.
Real big job.
that whole thing comes, like the whole pirate voice came from that one movie, that whole classic gangster voice came from Little Caesar.
That's really cool. Do you know if it was workshopped that way or if it was like the actor's decision? Was it direction?
As far as I know, that's just
Was
the
just-
that was on the actor there to do that. Yeah, and it was one of the first few gangster movies that were talkies.
Ah, the talking pictures.
It was that in 1931, and then the original Scarface in 1932.
Yeah, you told me about that. I actually had no idea there was an original.
Yes.
And then I'm forgetting another really important one that came out in 1931 that also helped
Like catapulted.
define the gangster movie genre as we knew it for like years.
Yeah. But what you have to
With the whole-
remember is those early movies were all subject to the Hays Code.
No. The Hays Code came in thanks to Scarface.
Ah.
And what is that?
The Hays Code was a set of rules set out by the then, I don't know what they were called then, but
They weren't the MPAA. Then.
no, it was pre-MPAA, but basically the MPAA of the era decided that any movie that shows criminal activity has to have the criminals get their comeuppance by the end.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that was-
villains, the criminals always have to get caught.
Yeah, that was put into effect thanks to Scarface.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
the
had
original
no idea.
Scarface. Yeah, it's very interesting. So those early gangster movies, post Scarface, contrast directly with how we know gangster movies today, which basically lionize and idolize criminal
Well,
activity.
the early ones did too. The ones up until Scarface all had the
Yeah, all five
like
of
the protagonist cast is kind of like a
Humphrey Bogart type.
basically
Gene
a,
Kelly
tra-
type.
a,
Like
a
a
tragic
dashing
hero.
sort
of-
A tragic hero.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
And then they were like, hey, kids watch these. We haven't invented the R rating yet, so kids shouldn't think it's cool to be a criminal.
Or do
Thus
they?
the Hays Code.
That's the Hays Code. Actually, in some of the silent movies that they shot in New York, they used like quite a few just actual gangsters.
Yeah,
Really?
because
Yeah.
they were around.
It's like, hey, you
They
guys
were
want
just
to
around. They're like, yeah, we filmed this. Like,
Run up some wise guys.
a couple of wise guys, right?
That's cool.
Also, it should be noted that the Hays Code was in effect through until, I believe, the early 60s.
Yeah, I was there for a long
For a long time, and one of the only ways around it was to make a biblical movie. They would allow excessive violence and nudity and everything in biblical pictures because it was, quote, reenacting the time, or it was accurate.
America.
Wow.
It was.
I mean, add that to the list of reasons that Mel Gibson was born in the wrong time period.
Yeah.
right.
He would have flourished.
But that's why a lot of the big epics that we know from the late 40s, early 50s, so many of them are biblical pictures. I mean, things like the Ten Commandments, other films that I can't think of right now because
Yeah.
Ten Commandments is the only
Spartacus.
one that
Bible,
sticks.
Bible the movie.
There's
Bible
10
2.
of them, and I mean 10's plenty.
Yeah, Bible 2, Electric Bibaloo.
Not bad. Not bad.
Nice.
I'm getting better. Yeah, gangster movies only really started becoming mainstream again in the late 70s, spurred on by Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather and work by other filmmakers like American Graffiti, which came out also around that time, moving on to films like Taxi Driver and the whole neo-noir and Chinatown.
You were
No,
saying there
it's-
was a whole bunch
Top
of
end.
shit around the filming of The Godfather.
Did I?
Yeah, you were saying-
Or didn't I?
He's also writing a mystery novel.
What? Are you guys writing it together?
No.
Is it
Or
going to be a
aren't you?
crossover event?
Yes.
Oh my god, the mystery novel cinematic universe.
You guys are you're going to take off your masks and reveal that you were writing each other's mystery novels the whole time.
Or were we?
What? It's like a mystery wrapped in an enigma. It's like a babushka doll. It's a babushka doll.
Where was I?
You were about to tell
Tell us about how the Godfather.
Oh, right. Okay,
Oh,
so,
I see.
yeah, from the first Godfather. What you have to remember is this was right when Paramount was bought out by a big conglomerate. And this was basically the start of production on The Godfather is seen by many to be basically the death of old Hollywood, because this was the first film, one of the first films rather, produced by a conglomerate-owned studio.
Okay.
So this was before, Time Warner was a thing. It was Gulf and Western at the time who had bought Paramount. And of course, they just wanted to see the bottom line. Fun fact, they actually almost just sold all the California property because they believed, Gulf and Western at the time believed that that would be the best way to make the most money.
Let's just sell everything.
Just sell all the property in California.
So I assume the production of Godfather just like went smoothly.
No,
It went
perfect.
very smoothly, perfectly, except that it didn't.
Oh, twist! You should write that mystery novel.
I totally should. Basically, at the time, Francis Ford Coppola was
Dead all along.
he was basically brought in as a hired gun director at the time, because they couldn't find.
It's hard to believe.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah,
In retrospect.
In retrospect, it's hard to believe, but he was the only, because the Mario Puzo, the writer of the novel, The Godfather, he was adamant that it should be directed by an Italian American. Basically because of all of the content and it centering so much around family, he felt that it would be the best way to portray that. Is to get someone who actually lived that type of family life in there to direct it.
Well, I mean, it's got that air of authenticity.
Yeah, no,
It's-
definitely.
It does.
I mean, just when you look at those little scenes about like how Uncle Sal is just describing how to fry the meat, then put in the sauce.
Yeah.
It's like Coppola said, like that's the type of things I heard in the kitchen all the time. But he was brought in as a hired gun because they could not find anyone else to direct the thing.
Jeez.
And he fought tooth and nail for every aspect of the film. Famously, Paramount didn't want it set in the 1940s. They wanted to update and bring it in, do it contemporary. So that was the first fight he had. Initially, the studio also wanted Robert Redford to play Michael Corleone.
That would have been strange.
Would have been strange, but
It was a big name.
it was a big name, and the book, remember, was written with the film in mind the whole time. It was one of those deals.
Like
And
Kick-Ass.
and the book describes Michael as a Robert Redford type. Like in
This
all but
Robert Redford type, not
Yeah.
Robert Redford.
exactly.
Mysteries.
Hi, I'm Red Robertford.
MD.
And I mean, they went over budget. They didn't like the cinematography. They hated the composer. The composer had famously worked on a lot of Fellini's films, which is why Coppola wanted that. He wanted that true, like, authentic Italian, like Sicilian sound. And I wish you could see the hand gesture I make.
Now that's a racist accent.
Ah, racist.
Oh,
You got it.
Yes, we want CineBeards. Thank you, Cape Town.
Good night.
so yeah, I should actually lend you guys the documentary on The Godfather. It's a very fascinating watch.
Isn't it up on Netflix?
It is unfortunately not. I bought the Godfather restoration DVD set,
Nice.
which
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that as well. That was a headache with the negatives and whatnot.
yeah, so
Ooh, lots of interesting stuff.
yeah, so basically, The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, they made so many copies of the film that they basically destroyed the negatives because it just kept gaining ground and like it had to be shown more and more and more, and people were requesting reels the whole time to replace because it was a
theirs
cultural phenomenon. I mean, you have to understand, this was the first Godfather was a blockbuster before Jaws. I mean, this is like people often cite Jaws as the first real blockbuster, but The Godfather was played on thousands upon thousands of screens, much more than the studio ever thought of.
Yeah.
So and the cinematographer also, when he filmed, he used, I think he mentioned it's like a thinner type of film, like fewer microns thick.
Was that for like aesthetic choices?
That's
or?
it was for aesthetic choices because it would give him deeper blacks in the indoor scenes. So yeah, aesthetically he wanted like deeper blacks. He wanted to go for a noir feel for the indoors, to harken back to the old style of gangster and crime
And
ridden
it
films.
shows. I mean,
It shows.
it's
I
the
mean,
signature of the film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It certainly paid off.
yeah, I mean, though there are just so many shots of like Marlon Brando and Al Pacino just like half lit in a dark room,
Yeah.
and that's sort of become sort of the one distinguishing shot of Godfather that people can immediately see.
Yeah, it's the one that's always used in the parodies and whatnot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like The Godfather was very influential, obviously, and it had a very troubled production. But that's not the only type of gangster
So-
film there is.
So basically, what you're telling me is that all this behind-the-scene nonsense that we hear about today are only in recent movies.
Yes.
It's never happened to a big.
No,
successful
never,
movie.
never before.
Back in the old days when good movies were still made,
Yeah.
they were made perfectly and there were never any
No,
problems.
I mean
No.
Casablanca had 0 reshoots.
They basically shot that in a
No,
day.
everything was one take.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the film is actually a play. If you look carefully, you can actually see
Blocking,
the,
yeah, is-
yeah, you can see the audience.
You see people dressed in black moving the props around.
Aeroplanes just on
That
the
it-
string.
That's actually my favorite fact about Casablanca when they had to do the reshoots for one of the airport scenes because they actually couldn't shoot it at an airport.
Yeah.
They literally had a smaller scale airplane on the lot and they hired actors with dwarfism to play people in the background.
They hired actors with dwarfism to play people.
Controversial.
That's a bold move.
Yeah.
To make people seem further away.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yes, false perspective. That's great.
False
That's some
perspective.
Lord of the Rings shit right there.
That's what Peter Jackson saw, and he's like, yes.
Basically
Yeah.
copied Casablanca.
Yeah.
I mean, like lots like the frankly idea, my idea, I don't give a damn stuff like that was all added in under protest during reshoots.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a dean.
Frankly,
but it-
my dear, for Frodo.
But it's like remakes as well. People are always like, they're so like focused on remakes and shit now,
It's like,
not realizing Scarface is a remake.
Yeah.
I didn't.
I
And
didn't.
I've seen
I didn't know
yeah.
until 5 seconds ago.
I've seen Scarface.
It's not a...
Oh, is that how the
It's
the
not.
emphasis is?
It's
I was sort of.
Scarface.
I thought it was just like about like a World War II dogfighter who's just really chilly. Scarface.
So, I forgot to mention this at the top. The reason we're doing this is because this year is the 35th anniversary of the Scarface everybody knows about.
Yeah, not the asylum.
the original Asylum one.
Like the pilot's just high as. just cocaine.
His plane is
I got cocaine on my scarf.
His scarf. No, the scarf is just drenched in cocaine, like how smugglers do it, where they like soak clothes in
Yeah.
cocaine and then wring them out. But his scarf is just soaked in cocaine. He just wrapped around his face the whole time. Just,
The
He's just having this
Scarface.
intense dogfight, just alone.
yeah, no, he hasn't even taken off. The plane's in the hangar.
No.
Anyway,
But yeah, no, Scarface was a loose remake.
Yeah, it
of
was a
the
thematic-
1932 original.
Oh wow.
It was a thematic remake.
there's no
Basically,
ways
that-
they'd make a movie that mad in the 30s.
No.
Well, no, the one in the 30s was, for the time, pretty mad. Like we said, it's the reason they brought about the whole Hayes thing, because
Yeah.
it just made him look really fucking cool.
Yeah.
and like these, at one point there's a scene where they're in the diner,
Yeah.
and rival gangsters come by and do a drive-by with Tommy guns. And at that point, the titular Scarface, as he was called, I can't remember his actual name, but it's not Tony Montana. Rather than being like terrified that they're shooting at him with machine guns, he's like, those are awesome. With those, I could take over the city. Those are brilliant. Get me one of those. Are you serious? And then his like number one or number two guy just stands up, shoots one of the guys in the car with a pistol as they're driving past, goes up, picks up the Tommy gun, and then gives it to him. And he's like, yeah.
That is amazing.
God, I'm funny.
You're so funny, Dion.
Pity I pressed record so late, or you would have caught that amazing joke.
Oh, it was so funny.
Well,
Like
it's like a good horror movie. Like the
You
best
had to be
jokes are
there.
just no. The best jokes are just imagined. Like
Yeah.
if you never reveal the joke
Yeah.
is just the funniest joke you've ever heard.
I'll just titter every now and then throughout the rest of the show.
Okay.
And we'll just imagine that you thought of a really good joke.
Here's one now. Oh,
yes, it's not like we took a bit of a break now before coming back to this episode at all.
no. And we know exactly where we were.
Yeah.
Well, I do, because I was talking and I always listen when I talk because it's important.
What?
I set myself up for
Yeah,
that.
you did.
You did. Okay, so continue.
No. You took the wind from my sails. You guys talk.
All right, that's it for this week.
That is not fair.
Oh, fun fact, just because of an off-mic discussion.
You almost said off camera, didn't you?
I almost said off camera. When they were actually doing the Godfather restorations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You were talking about that.
So one of the other things they know is 35mm film. The reason they can bring that up to 4K Blu-rays is because it's generally believed that the actual resolution of 35mm is around 4K itself. Which is why you see a lot of these old films in 4K remasters that look fantastic because they get it from when possible, from the source of the film, the negative,
Yeah, I mean,
which is 4K.
It's a physical negative. It's not something that's been digitally encoded with a set number of pixels.
Exactly.
It's an actual. It's the reason that you can zoom into like an object with a microscope and see like the incredibly tiny things. But if you zoom into like a picture
JPEG, then it'll just go
of an object,
Yeah.
like you're gonna hit a ceiling very quickly.
Let's say it's around 4K.
That's awesome.
So 35mm.
Yeah, that's what they
film.
say now until 6K, and they're like, well, actually, we have discovered.
We have discovered the negatives are close to 6K.
Yeah, it's actually more in that ballpark. So if you're watching in 4K,
You're
you
an
may as
idiot.
well, you may as well not have watched
You're gonna
the
have to
film.
buy it again.
Well,
now on
70mm
6K.
film would have a wider
You're part of the machine, Marcus.
Marcus, stop
a
contributing
wider
to
horizontal
this.
resolution, so that could very well be 6K.
They should really start releasing IMAX films in 8K.
The only 8K place I know of is the planetarium.
Planetarium.
Yeah, that's what I said.
No.
Planetarium.
No, there's no T in there.
It's French.
Planetarium.
Planetarium.
No.
To be away from the
Planet-
planetarium will cause you great pain.
Planetarium. It's from the Latin. Planetarium.
Yeah. Jason.
Planetarium.
Plane.
Planet.
Plane.
Planet.
Planet.
Plane.
Holy
Planet.
shit.
Plane.
Planet.
I'm so glad to be a permanent feature on this podcast.
Yeah, we've just been regretting that decision. We just we're like, okay, guys, we got to get rid of him. Like,
I knew it. I
Yeah,
fucking
we've got
knew
to
it.
chase him out
and then
because
you
he's
say
just.
planet, and then you say planetarium, and then you say planetarium, and then you put in the Latin.
I fucking knew it.
Planetarium.
Yeah, that's where they've got the 8K screens, isn't it?
Yeah.
I hate you so. It's actually super cool how they do that, because it's not like a pre-rendered video and shit like that. Like they actually they've created like a digital version of the universe, and you can fly through it on the planetarium.
That's so fucking cool.
So why aren't we at the planetarium right
Yeah.
now?
That's what I'd like to know.
Because we're all big idiots, and
planetarium
I
sounds
blame
amazing.
Thomas. I blame Thomas.
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 Thomas!
Thomas.
Oh, that's Thomas.
That's Thomas.
That's Thomas.
Do.
All right, tell us more about the.
There was not much more to it. That was just a final sort of factoid.
Yeah, but you said gangster movies are more than just The Godfather.
Yes, I did, because Martin Scorsese exists.
Well, there
and
are
also
only two gangster movies, as far as I'm concerned, which is The Godfather and Scarface.
Goodfellas.
Oh, Godfather 3 as well. Yeah.
Casino.
Hmm.
Casino.
That's where people go to gamble. You're not gonna fool me.
Heat.
Heat. Yeah. Yeah. Heat
Untouchables?
is a concept that's M. Night Shyamalan film. spelled
Reservoir
wrong.
Dogs.
That's just like a violent religious movie. That's basically Mel Gibson.
But no,
So yeah, Godfather 3 as the definitive gangster movie, because obviously that any trilogy they perfected in the last.
Gets
chapter.
better with age, like cheese.
Yeah.
it actually does. I rewatched Godfather Part 3 this morning at 3 in the morning.
Spooky.
Yeah, I know. It just kind of made sense because I was still awake and I was like, I had just finished watching Godfathers Part 1 and 2. I was like, I might as well finish the trilogy. And even though Godfather Part 3 gets a bad rap, I will admit it has its flaws, mostly stemming from Sofia Coppola not being able to act. But thematically and as a story and as a continuation of Michael Corleone's tale, it still holds up narratively.
Kind of like the third of Raimi's Spider-Man movies. If you remove the whole Venom
Yes.
subplot.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those movies that people are like still hating on for no reason because very few people, I think, have actually seen it.
Yeah.
That was actually another fun thing from the behind the scenes. You remember in South Park, I believe it was season 9 or 10, that scene where Cartman is trying to kill Kyle with a wiffle bat on the lake?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's obviously inspired by The Godfather, Part 2 specifically. And Trey Parker in the documentary mentioned that, so they were in the writer's room and they were trying to figure out, they couldn't remember if it was near the coast or the middle of the lake. And like half of their younger writers were like, they know it's Godfather, but they've never seen it.
Oh wow.
So it's like, Godfather has gotten such a cultural impact. Like it's truly penetrated the zeitgeist. I mean, The Sopranos would not exist if The Godfather was never made. And it, for better or worse, became the template for gangster movies going forward.
So let me get this straight. You said there are more gangster movies than The Godfather.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's already 3 gangster movies. How many do you need?
At least one more.
Do you need like some platform exclusive gangster movies?
Yes, I want
please.
a 1080p.
Alright, how about The Raid 2 Berandal?
Is that technically a gangster
Is
movie?
the Raid 2 the
I
Raid
don't
2
know
is
if
a
I-
martial arts movie?
Yeah, it's an
Yeah,
action
it's-
martial arts movie. It's
I think it's a
it does
martial
have
arts
gangsters
movie.
in it, but it's
No. It's
Dion
got...
said, knowing exactly what we
no,
were talking
it-
a
about.
look of pure confidence on his face.
The Raid 2 is definitely a gangster film. You have an undercover cop penetrating a criminal empire, being betrayed by the head of that empire. It's the whole main conflict is between the Japanese Yakuza and the homegrown Indonesian.
I don't know. This sounds
mobsters.
like a ripoff of The Departed.
Ooh, would that be a gangster movie?
Yeah,
Yes.
100%.
So obviously the ripoff's not.
No.
That's how it works.
Oh, you guys. The Raid 2 is definitely a gangster film.
Alright,
yeah.
fair.
No, I'll give it you after that description. Yeah.
yeah.
Gotta say, like, I agree with Marcus. That's always been my feeling.
Because
Also,
historically, you've been such a big fan of the Raid 2 all this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You really should watch it, Dion.
Yeah.
very
no, I
good.
know it's on the list.
Yeah.
Along with
It's a
everything.
long ass list.
It's a
You
long
watched
ass
Bone
list.
Tomahawk and the Neon Demon yet, Dion?
Yeah.
Shut up. You
watched
haven't
those
come
yet?
over to watch those things.
That is true. It's
That is
your
fair.
fault.
I will watch them again.
Yeah, they're good.
But now that you mentioned The Departed, I mean, it's funny because that got Scorsese his first Oscar, but it's a remake of a Hong Kong film.
Yeah, and
Internal
also
affairs.
not
Oh, yeah.
Scorsese's best.
No.
No, it's not his best.
So-
I can't be the only one talking. You guys also have to have favorite gangster
I know
movies.
so little about gang. Like I enjoy them when I see them, but it's just
Yeah,
as a genre, it's just something that
Yeah.
has passed me by. But
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
like
a
this is
little
making
on
me
my
really keen to
What?
actually go and watch. Them.
What this has made me really keen to do is pick up all of these originals that
Yeah.
are remakes of
Yeah.
movies, like, because I've seen all of the remakes
Hmm.
at some point in my life, but I've never even heard of some of these remakes. So
Yeah.
like, this has made me really keen to check out what those are.
Yeah.
Like, and this is an original joke here. Scarf Ace.
Oh, what? You spit it up like that. Oh my god, that's amazing.
Fuck, it's a good
Oh,
joke.
I'm so good at
George,
jokes
you
and
should do it. You
friends.
should steal that later.
I should,
And
and
tell
then
people it's
say
your
it,
joke.
and then I should sneak into Jason's home and edit the podcast so I put
Yes.
my one first.
Just send me the MP3 because I'll be at his house later.
All right,
and
great. I'll do
I know
that.
how to edit.
Yeah, 64 kbps.
Send me the MP3.
Fucking know how you do this. It's
Just
wood.
Bluetooth it to him real quick.
No, you've got the infrared. Turn your phone sideways and send it to me.
No, you're doing it wrong. It's all done via NFC these days.
I'll send it to you via Mixit.
Oh, no, you
Oh.
have a mix of deets. Nice.
I had a Mixit stalker back in the day.
Did you?
Somebody who added me, and I had no idea who they were, and like they knew my location at times.
Holy shit.
It was terrifying.
Do you... that is fucking terrifying. Do you want true cringe? I don't know if any of you accidentally did this, because I figured out that I accidentally did this. I don't know if I've told you the story.
I wouldn't know yet.
So...
Oh, I kind of figure I know where this story's going.
So, what I didn't know that I'd done at that point, because I still have this email address, was Mixit actually backed up every single message I ever sent.
You have told me this
Oh my
story.
God.
Okay, but I'm gonna tell it again. So, Mixit backed up every single message I ever sent and every conversation I ever had and emailed them to me. I didn't know I had them, but I do. I then stumbled upon them and proceeded to claw my eyes out with cringe at 16-year-old Thomas and the way he spoke and the people he spoke to and the things he talked about. If you ever want a portal to hell, do yourself a favor and look and see if you maybe...
I think
I'm
I think it
I'm
would
just
actually
happy that my MySpace page was closed down,
Oh,
so
I'm
I can
so
never get back
sad.
there.
My MySpace
No,
page
my
is closed
MySpace
down.
page was horrendous, and I
so
so
good.
wish I
I
still
love it.
existed.
All
Remember
of the
when you
shit
could order
missed
your
passed me
friends in
by.
order of importance on your
Yes,
MySpace
dude,
page?
that was the biggest social thing. Number one. Who's my number one?
And you
Wasn't that
can
in-
just
in-
move somebody down.
Yeah,
you know?
like-
Wasn't that an order of impotence? I did MySpace wrong.
You did. That's why your band never got signed.
Damn it.
Oh,
Oh well.
sad days. But yo, Gangster.
So gangster movies.
Gangster film.
My
Yeah.
new metal band.
Yeah.
It's such a new wave.
Fred Durst.
You're born in the wrong generation.
Oh no, fuck off.
Okay,
So yeah, MySpace gangster films.
yeah, my knowledge of gangster films is also like severely lacking.
Yeah, I don't know what.
I don't know.
I don't know what it is that. I don't think anything specifically ever turned me off gangster films. I just think maybe there weren't enough of them to pique
Yeah,
my
it
interest.
didn't build up like a critical inertia.
Yeah, there wasn't like with westerns. Like I specifically remember there was a time where I watched a lot of western movies. Like I never had that with gangster movies.
Yeah, I've never had a gangster movie binge like I have with other genres for some
No.
reason. I don't know why, because I don't have anything against.
No,
gangster
they're
movies.
objectively enjoyable and good time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But now
Well,
I've got
maybe this will kick off my first ever gangster movie binge.
Yeah,
I've
it
got
should. I
lots
mean,
lots of things
a
to watch.
gangster movie binge inspired this episode for me. Because I was just not sleeping, and then I watched Scarface, and then I was like, I should watch Goodfellas again.
You should break up that word.
Hmm?
The name Scarface.
Oh, so I watched
break it
Scarf.
up and then make a funny joke.
Scarface.
So I watched Scar
No.
Face.
Nailed it.
Oh, that's brilliant! Like somebody's got a scar on their face. What?
It's a brilliant way to misread that movie about the pilot.
And then I watched then it was like, God damn, I should watch Goodfellas again. because I watch that often, more often than I care to admit.
You
but it's a
prefer
very good
Goodfellas
movie.
to Casino?
Yes, because I'm a human male with emotions.
Never seen Casino.
Casino
should
is
see Casino.
really good. It's really good, but it's just not as good as Goodfellas. It's like he tried to recapture that magic, but something was missing, and I'm pretty sure it was Ray Liotta.
Yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough.
It's just the first half of a recent James Bond film.
Ooh, that's exciting. We've got Mads
Anyway.
Mikkelsen in it.
And yeah, watching all of these gangster movies has just made me really excited about Scorsese's next film.
Oh, this is the reason you wanted to bring this up. Because Netflix is paying you.
Getting that sweet Netflix money.
You better be sending some of that our way.
Yeah, fucking divide that shit.
Yeah, you gotta split your tips here.
I'll split it.
Sugar tits.
Sugar tits, who are you, Mel Gibson?
Oh,
Oh, no.
Sugar tits.
it's a mystery.
Is that Mel Gibson?
No.
No, Sugar tits is actually what he called the officer who pulled him over.
Yeah.
Oh
With that whole,
Yeah.
with that whole drunken tirade of his, he called her Sugar tits.
Oh really?
Yeah, he's the classiest man in Hollywood.
Really?
You can keep going octaves higher,
go
but
any higher.
like, this is the
Wow.
answer will remain the same.
Okay, wow. I didn't think my estimation of it could drop any further. That's spectacular. Alright. Wow.
But yes, the Martin Scorsese film on Netflix.
Yes, so Martin Scorsese is directing, with Netflix's money, a gangster movie that he's been trying to make for years and years. The Irishman, which follows the life of a gangster from his young age to his dying day. So they're using digital re-aging and de-aging on some of the characters so that you've got the same actors portraying the different.
Nice.
And I mean, we've seen now with the first Ant-Man that type of technology is.
And the second Ant-Man.
Young Jeff
yes.
Bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can turn anybody in
Anybody
Hollywood
into
into young Jeff Bridges.
Exactly. So, now that the technology is there, he realized that now was his time to get that movie made while still using all of his favorite actors.
Nice.
This will also be the
What,
first.
did like Graham say no, or did
Graham said no.
Wow,
Graham said
wow.
no because Graham didn't want Al Pacino and Robert De Niro to actually finally act, like across from each other.
Because they're the same person, and it would be too expensive to CGI them into the same scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly that reason. That's also the first thing. It's like you think about like Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. You always think of them of being in movies together.
But they never are.
But the closest they came was in The Godfather Part 2, where De Niro plays a young Vito Corleone.
Yeah, in part 2 of the Corleone trilogy by Edgar Wright.
So you've got De Niro and Al Pacino in the same film, but they never act across from each other. In fact, they never even met each other on set.
Oh, wow.
Because, remember, a lot of...
A lot of it was filmed.
in
the
Sicily.
old country.
Yeah, in the old country, in Sicily. So they never actually crossed paths.
Nice.
That's super interesting. So this
Yeah.
is the first time they're actually going to be.
Acting against,
Off of each
across, off of each other,
So
yes.
tell me more about this attractive upcoming Netflix exclusive developed content, Marcus.
That's definitely gonna
Netflix sure sounds
sweat.
like a great platform for someone to subscribe to. This sounds like probably the best possible
I
time.
should,
Yeah.
I should probably get the
subscribers.
highest tier of Netflix
Yeah,
just
please
to
tell
watch
us
this
about
movie.
the various tiers.
You
I would
probably
like to know
should.
about the rewards programs and exclusive content, please.
Well, as far as the reward programs go, by the end of July, in some territories you would still be able to leave user reviews on content. They're doing away with that because they realized internet commentary is garbage
Yeah.
Smart move.
and not to be trusted.
Oh, and they used to give. Yeah, they also did away with the stars system after that Amy Schumer special.
Yeah.
People just bombed it with 1-star ratings.
Oh,
Yeah.
having not actually watched it.
Exactly.
No, probably having watched it.
Well, some of them probably did, but
Yeah.
I would say the vast majority didn't. it's the same people who, for a laugh, rate all the Adam Sandler movies 5 stars.
Weird that they don't have a system in place where you have to actually have watched the content in order to rate it.
Yeah, I would think that would be logical. But anyway, the new system
That's
is
strange.
fine.
That is.
I don't know. This Netflix thing you're telling us about seems like it has a lot of problems.
Sounds like-
If I were paying you to advertise my product,
Yeah, I'd be deeply unhappy now.
Oh,
Well, they are actually
Cracks are
launching
showing.
in European countries. Actually, Red, this is actually a legit piece of news. They're launching a new higher tier,
The Ultra tier.
the Ultra tier, yeah, which allows you full Ultra HD streams,
with HDR.
yeah, with HDR concurrently. So
Fancy.
one account to 4 devices. They said it was the equivalent of $18 a month.
So Marcus, how do we sign up?
where can we go to find out more?
Just type Netflix into Google. And ignore the top-rated ad, because that's just how to cheat to get American Netflix in SA. Which,
For all our American listeners, you
Yeah.
probably don't get that one.
you probably didn't get that, but it's not worth it to try and VPN spoof with Netflix anymore, because they've gotten really good at blocking most VPNs from doing that.
So this Irishman movie,
Yes.
is it a completely original story, or is it based on real life events of some kind?
It is based on real-life events, and I believe a book was written about it.
okay.
Alright.
Much like most of Scorsese's work.
That's what I was asking. If I was just interested to see if it was like his passion project, if he was maybe doing something like wholly original this time.
Yeah.
Whoa, sick burn there.
Sick bird,
Ooh,
take that.
Scathing
Martin Scorsese.
indictments of Marty.
So yeah, gangster movies.
I think we
So Marcus, for those of us who are gangster movie neophytes, what would you recommend as, say, 5 good starting points?
Yeah.
Like, if you just off the top of your head, like, these are the 5 gangster films you gotta watch.
Okay.
Not including The Godfather, and not including Scarface.
basically Dion's seen those movies and it's asking for more gangster movies to watch.
Please recommend
We've
for
just
Dion.
we've just spoken about those at length.
Yeah. Well, besides those 2, which if you haven't seen, you really should make plans to see.
He's not listening to the instructions at all.
No.
Nah, yeah.
Yeah. 5 other gangster films that I would rate you really need to watch.
Will number 3 surprise me?
Number
You won't
3,
believe our number 5 ends.
number 4 will blow your fucking mind.
Alright.
So, and in no particular order of importance, just all of them should be watched.
Don't make that same joke.
I never would. I like to keep my material fresh, like impotence.
Damn it! You fell into it.
All right, yeah, go.
Okay, so definitely Goodfellas.
All right.
And let's see, definitely Goodfellas. Definitely, I would say, for a different view of gangsterism and moving away from like your standard Italian mafia, just watch The Departed. And then watch the original Internal Affairs for an Asian view of the same sort of subject. That one deals with.
I'll definitely be checking.
Yeah, that one deals with, well, obviously Chinese triads in Hong Kong. So, definitely worth a view. That's 3. Now I need 2 more that aren't Godfather or Scarface.
Little Caesar. Basically,
If you can find it.
watch
If
the
you can
first
find,
talkie to kick it off.
if you can
Sure.
find Little Caesar somewhere.
YouTube.
Yeah, it might be on YouTube.
That's where Sony's releasing a lot of their films.
You know, it probably is on
Premium
YouTube
too.
because it might have entered the public domain. And if it has entered the public domain, you should also find it on the Internet Archive. Archive.org, the greatest site on the universe.
Okay, so what's number 5, Marcus?
Number 5,
Avatar,
The Last
Close.
Airbender.
Last Airbender.
close.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 50 cents in the club music video.
What the fuck is
I thought you were just gonna say The Irishman, like. Available now on Netflix.
The Irishman coming 2019 to Netflix.
There we go. We got it. We got that sweet Netflix money. Yeah.
Also, so I'm gonna suggest that you watch The Raid 2 because that's a gangster movie.
Yeah, so I hear. That's how you punted it to me. When you suggested I watch it, you said I should watch it for all the gangster choreography.
All the intricate money laundering that takes place, all the really cool racketeering shots. My recommendation is also a gangster movie, Rock and Roller.
Ooh, yes.
It's a gangster movie. All of his three.
Just Guy
His
Ritchie's
first three-
gangster movies.
Oh yeah.
No.
Snatch is a gangster movie, Rock and Roll is a gangster movie, and
Lock,
Stock is definitely a gangster movie.
Yeah.
And they're all the same movie.
Yeah.
Lockstock, which was in the same week as Woodstock, and it's just totally overshadowed.
Classic.
Yeah.
That's poor release schedule.
Yeah, that would be like putting like an action adventure family film like the week before the end of the Skywalker
Nobody
saga.
will ever do that, Dion. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, nobody's that stupid.
Sorry, that was a really bad analogy.
But it's fine. It
Yeah,
carries.
if only Michael B. Jordan could come here and give us a better
His
analogy.
Lessons in dunking. So, on the theme of gangster movies, are we done?
I said Krabbies so long ago.
Dead genre! Hey! No, let's go shoot some crabbies.
Yeah.
We apologize for...
We're experiencing technical difficulties. We're experiencing incompetence.
Da, 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 da,
I'm sorry
da,
that I'm
da.
incompetent about talking about gangster movies. Thank you. And sorry again.
I'm glad that I could tell you people about some gangster films.
I forgive Jason for his incompetence, and I thank Markus for his competence.
I am just happy to be here.
You're not
As
happy
well
at
you
all.
should be.
No, but I'm happy to be.
Hey,
For my turn, I
you
pity
have
Pierce Hawthorne.
received 2 San Pellegrinos for your efforts today.
It's true.